Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lane podcast with Rico Muhammad and Chuck Snow. Unfortunately, my buddy Rico is busy doing something to do with freight right now, and he's gotten tied up. So I'm going to run this solo, but I'm honored to have a friend of mine named Josh Rickards, and Josh is the founder of a company called Rickards Transport, and they haul show freight. That's all they do pretty much. And Josh, welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, Chuck. It's a privilege to be on here. Love the chance to sit down with people that are very avid and into the trucking side of things and the business side of things, more so the Rates and Lanes side. So I too am also a fan of Rates and Lanes.
Well, we always love to have our fans on, especially. Josh, you and I, we met up about three weeks ago or so in Toronto. You were on a tour and with your fleet, and we talked all night. And you do so many interesting things with show freight. It's such a far cry away from the struggles that people have with looking for dry van loads, and you guys seem to be doing quite well. How did you ever get into show freight? Can you tell our audience? It's a pretty great story, I think.
Yeah. So for me, it actually started before the trucking, but the passion for trucking was in me from when I was a child. So on the trucking side of things, it was being around. I had an uncle that had a W900 and rode with him when I was a kid. Had 18 speed in there, and he was like showing me how to go through the gears. And I just loved the sound of the turbo spooling up, and had a passion for trucking. I know it never gets old. It never gets old when you hear the turbo spool up. It's a sound that it's a comforting sound for anyone that's driven and all that still drive. But yeah, so for me, it was one of those things on the music side of the business. There was a point where I had, from a little kid, I was wanting to join the military, and I actually wanted to go to the Marine Corps. And I remember when 18 comes around, and I was a fan of an artist where I started like passing out flyers and doing promotions for them. And I did it for pro bono, right? Just full fan, and was like, I went to one of the artist shows. There was like maybe 50 people at the show, and I'm thinking, man, this guy is so talented. You'd think there'd be more people here. And so I said, well, let me help. I want to help out with that. So I was passing out flyers and supporting the record label, and it was a label that like an up and coming label.
Right.
And the opportunity came to go on tour with them, and it came really through that. So it started where I was like passing out flyers unpaid, and then they were like, hey, we'll toss you a few bucks because you're really putting a lot of effort and time into this. And the show sizes were increasing. Like when I say the show sizes, the attendance would be increasing. So each time the artist came back, it's like, okay, well, there's 50 people, and now there's 300 people, attending these shows. And then it was growing from there. So the opportunity came to go on tour with them, and I was still on the merchandise side. And then later on, there came a point where they got their own box truck that was wrapped with the album cover, and they would just change the wrap. So like a new album would be coming out, they would just pull the wrap off, put the new album cover wrap. And so I would drive this box truck around with the artist face on it. And so at a small independent record label, you wear a lot of hats. So it's like you're doing merch, you're driving, you're doing all these different tasks. There was a point where I tour managed. And so I was on that side of the fence for a while. When I say that side of the fence, I mean like on where the just a different side of the touring crew. Right. And so I got to.
You were managing a tour, really, you were managing part of the tour.
Yes, but on a much smaller level than I'm doing now. I know we'll segue into that, but I'm on a really big tour right now, and there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces, but the core aspects of touring are pretty similar, right? So there's just a lot more people and a lot more moving pieces, but it still ultimately is a tour. So, but yeah, going back, I got my CDL record label, and
Right.
they ended up getting a semi and all that. And I was doing like a one truck. So yeah, so it really started with me passing out flyers for an artist I was a fan of, and ended up working for the record label. And I ended up I was at that label for quite some time. Like title, and I departed the marketing director. And so that was my actual like quote. The title was on the
Right.
business card, but I did a lot more than what was on the business card, And so, it's one of those things where even now, as an owner of a fleet, you do a lot. You understand how this works. You're doing a lot, right? You got for many small fleets, a lot of these departments that a larger fleet will have. You don't have those people in those departments. You are all of those departments. So.
Right. I can imagine.
I can feel from my owner operator out there.
So the tour that you're on now, how many? You run 6 trucks, correct? Altogether, how many trucks are in the tour total?
It's me plus 5. Yes.
Okay, and are there other trucks supporting?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a lot of trucks on this tour that I'm on. I'd say it's like upwards when you add every single part of it, because you have the steel team, you have the production, you have the merchandise. And then you also have the generators. I think they put out publicly that there's about 80 truck drivers on this tour.
Whoa. Wow. So tell me something. I don't know anything about this part, about what, how this works. Do trucks come on these tours for a while, let's say a month or 2 months, and then they leave and they're replaced by other trucks so that drivers get home time, or you're just committed for as long as this tour goes on?
You're committed for as long as the tour goes on. Unless an emergency happens and there's a situation where someone ends up in a health issue or anything like that could pop up. There's a lot of human beings out here, and so it has like a health issue or a crisis. Outside of that, you're committed to the entire tour.
Okay, and so you run a tour from start to finish. And how long is your average tour in the entertainment business?
Oh, they range. There's small tours that are a couple weeks, and then they can go all the way up to several months. I'd say on the music side, because you got Broadway tours that run all year. So a Broadway production it'll run for 10 months or 11 months. It'll run year round. And what a Broadway production will do, it'll just take breaks, right? So there'll be like holiday breaks and stuff like that. On music, I'd say 3. When you start getting about 4 months, I think you're on about the longer side of it. But there are tours that have gone longer than that.
So it takes a real dedicated individual to be away from his or her family for 4 months consecutively, because you're not getting back home as a rule, I wouldn't imagine, are you?
Yeah, I'd actually bring it out longer than that. I would say that as a tour driver, you should just pretty much plan on being out the entire tour season. So the tour runs in a season. That season typically starts up around March. By April, it's ramping up. So it's literally a ramp up. So March, the season kind of starts, and then it ramps up in April. It ramps up in May, and now that we're in May, we're in the thick of the season, and the season will run all the way until it starts ramping down. The tail end of the season starts around September, October, and that's when the season starts ramping down. But from April to August, you are in the peak of the season.
So are there not very many concerts during, like, from October to February or March? Is that what happens? I don't go to a lot of
what happens during the summer months, once you get in the summer months, that's when the amphitheaters really start ramping up, right? So you have and when you actually, you can, it's really simplified when you start breaking down the aspects of touring. So you have club shows, you have theaters. On the Broadway side, you have performing arts centers. Then you start getting to sheds. then you can get to amphitheaters, and you can start going up to arenas, and then all the way up to stadiums, which is a tour that I'm on right now. It's a stadium tour.
Okay.
And you're
So
just,
every
I mean, you
you're
just got to think about
performing,
it. You're not going to run a stadium tour from January to March. It's just, you know,
right?
and then also you're in the middle of, and when you're doing stadium tours, you also like, you have to look at there's, you know, games and all that stuff because there's a sports side of it. Same thing on arenas. The shows have to be booked around the sporting event.
Right, of course. Because that's who usually, you're right in the middle of football or baseball
Because the
seasons.
ultimate,
You've got to,
like all these stadiums go to and these arenas we go to,
right?
it looks like we had a bit of a connection issue, so I didn't catch
Yeah.
that.
So no, you were saying all of these arenas that you go to, and what was your second point there?
Oh, okay. So with the arenas and the stadiums, you also have sporting events at these
Right.
places. So the concerts are ultimately moving around those sporting events, and it's just more of a easy to understand that when it comes to weather, you're not going to 80,000 people are going to want to typically come see a show when it's snowing out in January, February at a stadium, at an open-ended stadium or an amphitheater. So
And that's, what, it's funny.
That's part of where the seat.
Right, it's funny. People will sit in those temperatures to watch a football game, to watch the Green Bay Packers play or something. They'll, or the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They'll sit in 40 below zero weather, which I can't understand.
Absolutely. No, and you will see. I mean, these shows are rain or shine.
So really,
on this tour that we're on
was my
right
next
now, when
question.
we were in Nashville, it was go ahead. When we were in Nashville on this tour, and this was just the other day, they had a weather now. So during a stadium tour, it's rain or shine. So rain doesn't stop the show. However, they did have to have light can be more of an issue because you have a lot of generators and a lot of power, and so lightning. So what they had to do was during while the lightning clouds were going through, they just had to pause, get a lot of the fans to covered areas, and then allow that to pass. And I think that was about 30, 40 minutes. Once that passed, they were able to clear the show. And the band was playing, even in the audience. I mean, they'd bring out everybody still enjoyed the show. And we also load out and get, rain or shine, so I'd say the difference with entertainment is one of those things where you could risk, like with general freight, you're hauling a load of Gatorade or you're hauling some food products. It's not that it's not crucial, but on the supply chain side of things, supply chains can get strained and there can be shortages on shelves. But at the end of the day, when a normal working supply chain, they typically have some inventory where if they have to reschedule a load or if a weather related event, they can usually work around that. Entertainment, there is no workaround on that. The show is scheduled on these dates. You have so many moving pieces. You have so much money in labor, in the cost in the venue. On the operation side, it has to get there regardless. That's where you hear the show must go on, or you hear these themed words, and they really echo, and
it's true.
And
Clark Transfer, who we all know, I met the owner.
On this, you really are.
Yeah. What a fascinating line. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, I don't, we usually take questions, and I was hoping people could pepper Josh with questions, but there doesn't seem to be. Rico has set this up, and I don't seem to be able to see any questions tonight because of our strained technology. So I apologize for that. If you don't mind, though, very generous of Josh to join us. And if you could please press like for this podcast, because we're trying to get our algorithms up. So if I can just remind you to do that. Josh, how long have you been doing this altogether?
Well, on the entertainment side, I just turned 40 So 18 years old was when I started on the entertainment, and I got my CDL when I was 21. And so we're
Okay.
at you know, getting closer to 20 years
And
on the
then,
trucking.
and how long after you got into it as a driver did you decide to go out and buy your own truck and start your own company? Were you an owner operator? Like, is that how you evolved?
Yeah, so I bought my daughter was born in January of 2018, and I bought
Right.
my first truck in February of 2018. And then I went and leased onto a larger carrier in the very beginning, but I ultimately got my authority. My authority went active in September of 2018. Um, so I had just leased onto a large carrier, ultimately just for a few months, really just to kind of uh, get a sense of being an owner operator. And then also, I was buying a trailer at the time, so I pulled that company's trailer for. This was such a short window. Um, it dawned on me very early and very quickly that I would have, to, leased on to a carrier for the vision that I had. It wasn't going to correlate with that. There was no way that where I could go out and build my own relationships or really establish my own thing until I had got my own authority. But of course, like I was still like the beginning stages of, okay, let me get an owner operator part down. Let me understand, the aspects of uh, budgeting for the truck and just all the things that go with an owner operator, right? Understand that part of it.
Yeah.
So, from February to September, by September came around, I was like fully ready to have my own authority. And so my authority has been active since September of 2018. And we're, heading up towards 7 years
Wow.
with
Good
authority.
on you.
And then when I got my authority, I actually, for 1 year, I just ran just my one truck. I didn't bring anyone on. I wanted to fully understand, so each part is kind of like a stepping stone. So it was like, all right, let me get a truck and understand this part. Let me get my authority. Let me run for 1 year, just me, one truck, so I could get that down. Then I leased on, and I started leasing on owner operators. And ultimately, how it came about was I meet these great guys out here on the road, right? And it's just amazing people. And it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I see something in that person, and ultimately I'm like, hey, like, who's going to offer you a better deal than I am, because I rent to people. And so it's one of those things where I built friendships. So I had to know someone, and ultimately I'd bring them on as part of the team. But by the time they came onto the team, it's not something where you don't really feel like you're taking too much of a chance on someone, because you kind of already got to know that person. You've already had enough, phone calls while we're out driving on the road. I've had time where I've been around them to really see how they move, and ultimately it's one of those things where, like, for a company that just goes out and says, okay, just fill out this application, and they're just looking at a paperwork on some people. Whereas for me, it's just, I think separates it is each person that's came on are people that I've gotten to know them before they've come on to this team. So they, by the time they come on and join the team, they're not a stranger at that point.
So you know their character, because having operated a fleet for decades, one of the big nightmares is when you have a driver that flips out for some reason and goes AWOL with a load, and it happens. It's only happened to me a few times in my life, but still, you can't do that with show freight. You can't do it with any freight, but especially show freight. There's no way. Can you hear me, Josh? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a bit of a issue. Josh, were you able to hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Hello? Can you hear me? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a few technical problems tonight. Don't know what they are, but or what's
Looks
causing
like
them.
we had a little bit of a
Josh, are you
connection issue.
hearing me at all?
I'm hearing you now. Yes, Jeff.
Okay. So one of the big worries always when you're operating just regular freight is having a driver go AWOL or something with a load because he gets ticked off. I've had them get ticked off at their families, and just that's how they react. And you can't have that with show freight, obviously.
Absolutely. No, you cannot have it. Another thing too is, so in the world of show freight, we're a smaller carrier, right? We're like a boutique. We've actually been dubbed the like special forces of touring, right? So it's one of those things where it's a moniker that sounds really cool, but it's also something we really live up to. For example, when there's other companies that we've worked alongside, and when they see when they see this logo on the truck pull up, it's almost like they're like, okay, cool, someone. And so like we have to live up to because we're a smaller outfit. You know, could bring on a driver, you know, say it's a driver goes AWOL or something like that. Well, that's not so much reflected on that entire company because that company is just, they've got so many solid people, right? That it doesn't stop using that company over one bad driver, right? In our situation, being 6 trucks, and we're working on these high profile tours and we're supporting on these tours, one driver really reflects the entire company.
Of course.
Right. So when you're smaller in size, one of those things where there's almost like more eyes on you when you're smaller sized, and when you're a bigger company, people can overlook certain things. They can just go, well, yeah, that definitely was that driver, because this large company has so many amazing people on it that they just look at it like they just write off that one driver and go, okay, yeah, I mean, you know, it happens, right? It's just the odds of things, right? But when you're a smaller company, literally like in the music business, and this is what's interesting, is that coming from the other side, working for the record label, every position that I had in every area that I moved up to on that side of the business was 100% relationship driven. The music business, I mean, this is probably something you hear on movies or TV, but it really is who you know. And it's not just who you know, but how, you know, how do they know you and what do they see in you? And so it really is about, like, there's a lot of people are constantly navigating that. There's like a political side of the business, right? And a lot of it is like how you move and how people see you move. So being on this side, it's actually very similar, right? And so those relationships are very crucial. And it's one of those things where I have to have people like right now, one of my other drivers is on this tour with me. So there's 2 of us on this tour, but I have some of my other drivers are out on other tours right now, and I'm not present on those tours. But the feedback that I get is your driver is an extension of you, and I have to have people that I'm confident in, that I can send them out on other tours, and they can act and conduct themselves in a very professional manner. At the end of the day, on a tour, I wouldn't say you're not out here to be everybody's friend. You don't need to be. It's not a popularity contest, but you definitely need to be professional and really carry yourself in a way. I mean, when you're spending 2-3 months on the road with people and you're seeing them day after day after day, people are going to have good days, people are going to have bad days, but ultimately what's going to prevail, and the people that they're going to want to come back again, are the people that were professional and handled their job. And you know, with us, it's more of like, it really is like, there is no a can't, there is a we can, you know, attitude. So your attitude plays a big role, because obviously, you know, yeah, I mean, there's days that I wake up, and I mean, when you're on tour for 3 months, you're going to have a day where you get sick and you're just not feeling good. You're feeling under the weather. But even in those days, you got to carry that positive attitude and go, okay, hey, feeling under the weather, it happens. We're human. We're going to get sick, or things are going to go down, or we might be dealing with some things at home. But the most important part is that you don't bring that onto the tour. So if you're sick, you know, you're not trying to get everybody sick. If you got some stuff at home, you're not bringing that into the tour, The thing is when you're a tour driver, the mentality is the tour comes first. You have to handle the tour. You have to service the tour. And that is ultimately what brings a great experience for the fans. And it brings I mean, we literally are bringing cheers and smiles city to city.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I don't usually watch. I don't watch all the shows. I might catch a glimpse of some of the shows, and that's something else to address. Just to segue into it quickly uh, is understanding what the entertainment trucking side really looks like. Some people have like a vision where they think like people think like backstage is some like there's wild parties or there's all this glamour behind it. It's real. I mean, you see a bunch of guys like staring at their phones or like, you know, or taking a cat nap because that's their area it's a quiet area for them to get some rest before, you know, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've walked in the crew areas and the backstage and, you know, I'll see production crew like laying on cases, taking naps, you know, it's not this glamorous thing. And, you know, typically people are really intrigued by our side of the business. And so they look at it and go, oh, okay, do you meet the band? Do you do this, do that, do that? And then for us, the pleasure in what we do is actually, and a lot of drivers in other areas of the trucking industry, I know that they can appreciate this. How many times would, like, say you're a flatbed driver and you haul construction materials? You know, I know drivers that are flatbed and they're like, hey, I was part of that building project or I was a part of this. And it's really the same over here. So it's one of those things. It's like, oh, okay, I was a part of that tour or I was a part of that show. And so for us, it's more, when you're a tour driver, you really are a ghost on the tour.
Oh, yeah.
Just like truck drivers are the backbone of the country. They're the backbone of Canada. They're the backbone of America, all North America.
100%.
But it's, and I know truck drivers can relate to this. It's not, we often don't receive the credit. We're often not known. We're really kind of like, there's so many people that go into the grocery store and don't really understand how it all got there. And there might be moments where they appreciate it, but overall we're kind of forgotten in a way.
100%. I only saw us appreciated once, and that was during COVID. I have never seen us get anywhere near the appreciation that our industry or our profession so rightfully deserves. You know, and the fact that in North America, trucking is not considered a skilled trade drives me crazy, if not a profession. You are piloting 80,000 pounds down the road in fog and snowstorms and rain. You know it all.
Yes.
Going down mountains is, you know, it's slick as heck, you know, and you're going down them safely and you're putting chains on your tires and every other damn thing you have to do to keep things going. And I don't think we get nearly the amount of credit or appreciation from the public that we deserve and rightfully deserve.
Driver, you accept that gracefully. So as a tour driver, we are the ghost. So if we're heading to catering, it's on these big tours, you know, they provide, there's a lot of amenities, and they do appreciate you. The tour appreciates you because you are a part of the crew, right? So the actual tour side, the production, they do appreciate. So it's not that we're unappreciated out here, but it's one of those things where we are one of the, like, for a tour driver, you want to not be seen. You want to just like, it's one of those things where no, you're not hanging around the band. You're not over here. You're not, you know, you're during the shows we're sleeping because we have to have our rest in order to, because now that's another thing about tour driving. You're driving at night. The show gets out at night and then the next day.
So that's a real issue. You've got to switch back and forth between days and nights all the time, don't you?
Yes. And beyond that, you have to adapt. You have to adapt. Like, you could be hauling, there's so many different things you could haul on a tour, but you could be hauling PA, you could be hauling video, you could be hauling barricade. There's so many things that you could be hauling, and you got to be able to adapt to what you're hauling. So it's one of those things where you got to adapt to different schedules. You have to adapt to things. Things are constantly changing and evolving in production. You might park somewhere. So say the trucks all park up in one lot, they might need to move to another lot. They might have to go here. You might have, I mean, you really are pretty much at work the entire tour. You will, of course, get time for your
Yeah.
rest. You are definitely allocated time for your rest, but that's the importance of not being. That's why, like, I'll pop in and see a glimpse of a show, but not if we have a drive that
No,
night. And then ultimately, there's a lot of tours where, yeah, I don't even see the show at all, but that's fine, right? Because we're not here to
Right.
see the show. We're here to make the
Yeah.
show happen. And so that's something that when people get in this industry and they get into the entertainment side, it's like you do it because of your passion of moving the show along and being a part of it. So you get people that kind of hop in and hop out. People come in and they see, oh, it's not what they thought it was. And, entertainment trucking is really not for everybody. But for those of us that do it, we wouldn't do anything else. So that's the thing. It's like the people that get into entertainment stay in it and have a passion for it. For myself, this is like there's nothing else I could see myself doing. I have so much passion into this, and the passion goes beyond, and it's all things production. Because in the off season for touring, we start stepping in and doing corporates. So when you go to shows like the Mid America
Right.
Truck Show, that we would consider a corporate or
Right.
trade show. I'd say that's more of that is a trade show, but I put that on the corporate side of the category. So you could be hauling in gear to a trade show. For us, we were actually in February this year, which is the off season for touring. I was in downtown Dallas doing a street unload at the Adolphus Hotel. No, there's no dock. Well, I mean, there is a dock, but it's a 12'7".
We don't have
so
a
you're
dock.
not getting So I consider that not a dock, and that's why we have ramps. So we have a
Right.
ramp on our trailer. We can pull the ramp out, a 16-foot ramp. There's a belly hanger that holds the ramp under the trailer, and and schedules could always be changing. So you could be doing a drop in the morning. You could be, like that was a situation where we did a drop early morning, and then when the event went on, I went away because you're not going to leave the truck sitting there. There wasn't parking for it. I went away and then came back on a Friday at like 5 p.m. in downtown Dallas and have to navigate all that and get in position and then, load the gear out and then drive all night, so here's a situation where you're coming in, you're on a daytime schedule, and then you're going away, flipping your schedule, going to more of a nighttime, and then doing the loadout and then running all night. I mean, that's the thing with entertainment trucking is whether you're doing corporate events, trade shows, if you like daytime schedules, trade shows are great because you're not, you're going to do more loading. You're going to be morning load-ins and morning loadouts, right? But so yeah, for us, this is something that we just generally have a passion for. It's not. So we've actually one of our drivers just finished a Broadway theater tour. We have another driver that's going on another stadium tour, and then myself and another driver's on a stadium tour. I have another driver who is doing a gear return from a burlesque show.
Shouldn't need a lot of truck room for that one.
Yeah, no, that's more props
Right.
and wardrobe. Yeah, props and wardrobe. Yeah, so we're all. I mean, actually, and then one other driver. Now, here's another aspect of it too. The steel, which is so when you go to a big stadium show, you're going to have the production, but you're also going to have the steel, which is all that stage. We call that the steel. So one of our drivers is doing what's called anyone listening to this podcast would understand what power only is, and that's where we're pulling because we don't own any flatbeds. All of our trailers are all production van trailers, which are customized trailers for production. But yeah, one of our drivers is hauling a steel trailer, which the thing with steel, you're not going to tarp it. It's going to be straps. It doesn't matter. The stage is out there in the rain, right? It doesn't matter if it gets wet. But we're going to be taking one of that to a stadium. And then another thing too, just to add, one of my drivers is going on a stadium tour. Some of these tours actually have NDAs. So where you cannot pictures.
I can see that.
Social media might be monitored. I think there was a tour that a lot of people know that happened over the last couple years with one of the hottest, biggest pop stars in the world right now. And that is a tour where they're absolutely monitoring your social media because we have all access passes, we have all access badges, we have credentials to all of and we have to have on the trucking side, we have to have access to every part of the venue. We're actually in with these stadium shows, we're actually driving the truck into the stadium, onto the field, and unloading the
Sure.
gear.
I,
And so, because we have this access, some of these artists that were a part of this tour, I mean, there's
oh, yeah.
security threats. They have to make sure the safety of the artists is so people could use you as an access to get to the artists. And so it's one of those things where that's why on the entertainment side, again, it's one of those things where it's a great business for someone who has a passion for it. And and everybody gets a start, I mean, definitely people can get a start in the entertainment side. um, all of our drivers are tour vets, but I actually have one driver that's on this tour with me, and this is his first. He's done
Right.
production for a while, but this is his first big tour, and that's also part of the reason why he's out with me, is so that I could walk him through it and really show him the ropes. And um, he's doing very well on this tour. Been getting a lot of great feedback. I knew before I brought him in this tour, getting to know him, that his personality would fit, and that's the other thing too, is you're around so many people. So um, it just all sums up to, like, it's not for
No,
everybody, but for anyone watching that is like, because we all started from that point of curiosity. We all had a spark of interest, and it starts there, and that's the seed that's planted, and then from there it can grow. And so I think that especially for young people, that actually the driver that's on this tour, he's 31, and I told him, I said, I mean, think about it. Like, even myself, I have at 40, I got at least a good 20 years of me to keep going at this.
oh,
And
yeah.
so, but at 31, I told this driver, I told him, I said, 31, if you like this, because there's so many people that have been in this business for so long. And what's happening now is a lot
Of
of them are
course.
aging out. A lot of them are starting to retire. There's a lot of drivers that have been doing entertainment for 20, 30 years, and they're getting up there in age where it's like, I mean, at some point, regardless of how much passion you have with anything, at some point you got to pass the torch and, let some of the young guys come in, or young women come in. And this is also an industry, just to touch on that subject, trucking in general has been more predominantly
Yes.
male. Um, but it's on the entertainment side, everyone is welcome. And that's another thing that I love on the entertainment side. No one has any care in the world of what your ethnic background is, male, female, or however you identify
Right.
yourself. um, at the end of the day, it really comes down to your passion and your work ethic. And if you're here, again, as long as you're not trying, like, if you're drinking during the show, or if you're doing anything irresponsible, you're not going to last in this
No,
business.
you're not going to last in the
And
industry
that's
if you're doing that while you're working. You know,
anywhere in
that's
trucking,
right.
right? So anyway, like, regardless of what you're hauling, what trailer's behind you, you got to be professional, and you got to take it serious, because if safety's at risk,
Oh,
obviously people get weeded out, right? But and it's not for everybody. But what I love on the entertainment side is really is welcome to. It's more about your mindset, and your work ethic and your passion, and anyone's welcome in this industry. So that's also a beautiful part of it. For any women watching, I would definitely say, hey, entertainment trucking, there's definitely a place for you, and no one's going to treat you different. It's not one of those things where it's all, even though there's predominantly males, anyone's welcome in this, and it doesn't matter your ethnic background or your
what
religion.
about age? Now, you said a young guy, 31, but what about, we're talking about now there's the law has been out for years, but they've now allowed and I mean a handful of cases throughout United States, allowing 18-year-olds to cross state lines. Well, I realize that you're not going to hire an 18-year-old, but quite often you have I've met young people that come off the farm. They've been driving the family, grain truck to the granary from the farm for, since they were kids, and they've been doing it legally since they were 18, running intrastate. They get to be 22 years old. They have a lot of experience. Would the entertainment industry hire somebody like that young, that's off the farm, that's had 3 or 4 years driving experience?
Here's what I'd say on the entertainment side. And I do want to put this disclaimer out. The one aspect on the entertainment side is to go out, for example, to go out in the general freight and pull dry van. There's some very large carriers that will pull people with no experience, put you through schools, and train you. The difference with entertainment is that entertainment doesn't work that way. So entertainment, where a person can come in at a young age. However, entertainment doesn't train new drivers.
No, of course.
So ultimately, a lot of companies that I feel like the minimum is 2 years of experience, but for the most part, like with me, it's going to be more 5 years and higher. Here's one thing to know about entertainment. If you think about just the aspect of entertainment, right? Concerts and shows. Well, where are concerts and shows going to take place? They're going to take place where there's a lot of people. You're not going to have, I'm not saying you don't have shows in smaller rural areas. It's not that you don't have them there, but they're not as common, right? You're going to, I was in Toronto when we had met, and we were right smack dab at the Rogers Center, which is right in the middle of, if you're in an urban area. And being in these urban areas, a driver just ultimately needs to have more experience, right? You need to know how to maneuver the truck. Any mistakes that you made, they ultimately need to be made on general freight. Because a lot of people that came over to entertainment, I'd say pretty much everyone I know has done freight at one point or another. We might not do freight now. That's not the world that we're in now, but we all came from that background, and we've all had to. There was a point for me. Now, not everyone has my story. My story actually started in entertainment. That is more rare, but before I bought my first truck, I've done freight. I went and did freight, and there was a point where I actually hauled tanker for a while. That tried that out. I've been in other aspects of trucking. It's been predominantly entertainment, but it's more of a rare story where someone started in entertainment, right? It started for me because I was working for an independent record label, and I started with a box truck. So I was driving these urban areas with a box truck. At the point that I got my CDL, I was already somewhat familiar with the venues, a lot of the venues, because we still went to some of the same venues. We started going to other venues. So someone coming into this, I've heard of some companies. I feel like I'm kind of going on a limb here. I feel like some companies will take you 2 years, but ultimately,
5 years.
They're looking more. For me, it's.
I don't blame you. Now, I need to ask you 2 other questions. First one is, how do you transition yourself? Because it's a problem in our industry between driving days and driving nights. It's a huge issue. We've had a guest on several times who's given, he's actually, amongst other things, he's a seasoned trucker. He's a sleep expert Dean Croak has now given over 1,000 lectures on sleep that he became very familiar with running a truck line over in Australia. So how do you transition to go from working days to working nights? How do you do it?
I would actually love to go back and watch the podcast with this gentleman, because even myself, I'm interested in this area of learning more ways to more efficient ways, or understanding more about sleep. For me, it's just been more necessity. So it's been more tomorrow's a show night. We're loading out tomorrow. So for me, it's simple. I'll stay up late tonight. I'll stay up late, maybe sleep, maybe take a cat nap, sleep for a few hours. That way I'm tired enough tomorrow afternoon to go to sleep. That's one way to do it, because this is a tour where you're going back and forth on schedules. Now, on a tour where you're moving all the time and you're just staying on a night schedule, it's just the
Well,
first
that's
week where
easy.
you run
If
into
you're
the challenge.
staying on a night schedule, you're on a schedule. You transition yourself. You're driving nights, which is never fun, but that is the way it is.
Yep. So on those, I feel like every tour presents different challenges, but on a tour where you're moving, one of our drivers is on a tour where he's moving pretty much every night. I mean, he's staying on that schedule. Whereas I've myself and the gentleman that's with me on this tour, we're having to flip back and forth. So that can provide its own challenges. But like there's a lot more downtime on tours like this that I'm on because it takes, like when you're doing a stadium tour, it takes several days just to
Oh, I
set
can
up.
imagine.
So, well, for the driver, after you're loaded in, the crew has to set everything up. So you got downtime. You're able to get your rest. Yeah, you have to be, available. But outside of that, I mean, there's not a tour where you're not provided or allocated a
Is
time to
there
get
ever
rest.
enough downtime on a tour to take a quick flight home to see your family for a couple of days and then fly back to your truck? Does that ever happen?
It can, but it's so rare.
Yes,
It
it's
really is
dangerous too,
rare.
because the plane
There,
doesn't take off or
there,
something.
yeah, there could be a break. Sometimes there could be a break, or again, that's the situation on, like, say, like a Broadway theater tour where it takes a break. Those are definitely times where you could keep the truck, um, or either keep the truck where at a yard, or uh, maybe find an area where if the truck's got the gear, then find a secured lot somewhere, somewhere that has
Right.
cameras and it's gated and security, and in that situation. But it ultimately, it really is determined by the tour, and it is something that's very rare. It happens occasionally, but for the most part, your mindset's got to be, when you go on tour, your mindset, like during the tour season, your mindset is you're out to work. You need to generate the revenue. Now now we've been working in the off season, but it's not required. I mean, so for a tour driver, I'd say January and February, plan any vacation, take any time you want off. That is the
Right.
time to take off. Now that's a cold time, and that's not the best time of the year in North
Right.
America. But you want to plan a vacation, that's a great time of the year. I mean, you can go to Hawaii, you can go to the Caribbean, you can go to Mexico. There's places that are still
Oh, yeah.
warm during January and February. And so if you're looking for warmth, or you want to take a vacation, you could stack up your bank account while you're out during the tour season, and then go take any vacation or any time off in January, February. This, we're in a building process. So, for us, like even myself, I mean, I bought a brand new truck, 2025 Western Star. So I was out in January this
Yeah,
year. So,
that's a lot of money.
now, but even myself for December, I actually got it's funny. I got a phone call today, like I'd say about an hour before this podcast, where I got offered a gig in December. I might or might not take it, but I know the last 2 weeks of this year, my plan is to go to Hawaii, mainly because one, my wife, we have a connection to Hawaii, but also. I was out in the off season, so I promised my wife, I'm like, okay, we're gonna,
Don't break
take some
those
time off.
promises, man. You know what? They're hard on a marriage. I can tell you. I've seen it a lot of times where you promise something, you gotta live up to it.
Yeah, actually, I had a year. It was actually last year that I made plans to. We took a cruise for
Right.
Thanksgiving, and there was a really big tour that I probably could have been a part of, but I have no regrets for that. We took a week-long cruise. I did. I had done quite a few tours last year and stayed busy, and that's the other thing too is even as we get in the middle of tour season, there's something else I didn't mention, which is also the festival. Festivals are always going to run in the summertime, so um, we did, and there's some fall festivals, so we did some festivals. Um, in this business, as when you get in this business and you do a good job, whether you're a driver that's working for a company, you're an owner operator, you're in a situation I'm in, um, when people know that they can trust you, the work will come.
Right.
So it's one of those situations where the gigs will come, even where we are being a small fleet. Um, I mean, just thinking about that, right? We're a small 6 truck fleet, and we're able to build that trust and that reputation to be support on these high profile tours, and we don't. That's something we don't
Right,
take
of course,
lightly.
you know what? You should never take somebody's trust lightly, because that's the highest compliment somebody can ever give you, is to trust you. So why would you want to? Trust is sacred. It just is, and it needs to be looked at that way. My other question: when you have a tour and there's, let's say there's 3 dozen trucks on this tour, do they all roll down the road in convoy, or how does this work? Or as soon as you're loaded, you get out of Dodge? Is that how it works?
On the bigger tours with a lot of trucks, it's usually load
Okay.
and go. You will see little pockets. There'll be a few guys that'll stick together, when I say guys,
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
get
using that
it. A
term
couple.
as you'll have people that'll stick together. Um, but on the smaller tours, your 3 truck tours, 4 truck, 5 truck tours, it's pretty common that everyone will just roll together. But when you're at a tour that's 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 trucks, um, everybody's getting loaded at different times, and it most of the time it's like you need to get to the next venue, so it's just, hey, just get there, you know. And that's the other thing of a tour driver mentality. If you got 2 days to get somewhere, um, in freight, someone can take their time, right? They can go, okay, well, I got 2 days to go 500 miles, so they'll take their time getting there. Tour driver mentality is, well, what if something
Bingo. That's
happens with the
how I
trucker?
guess I was meant to be a
Just
tour driver, because I've always thought that way. You know, if it's a 4 hour trip, I'll leave early and want to get there ahead of time.
a tour driver, all you're always putting that it's always about the tour. So it's one of those things you have to think, well, what if something happened? You just get there and take your downtime, or take advantage of that time there. So if you got 500 miles in 2 days, just get there in one stretch. That way, if any problems happen with the truck or anything, you can address that there, and the tour is not at jeopardy. You always got to think, don't like you never want to put the tour in any type of jeopardy. You're always thinking about the
Now,
tour.
I have watched. I've been in the business altogether since '74, and I remember way back when I first got into it, trucks were pretty reliable for many many years. They ran. There's old Peterbilts that have 3 million, and old Macs that have 3 million miles on them, and they've been rebuilt a number of times from bumper to bumper. Uh, ever since 2008 or so, trucks have had a lot of sensor problems, as we know, especially the early DEF trucks. And, we had a lot of problems with them with sensors and everything else. How is that safeguarded on a big tour with trucks breaking down, which seems to be more prevalent now than it ever was?
And that's another thing too on a big tour. On a big tour, ultimately, and there's other terminologies and things. There's certain things that I can talk about, and
Yeah,
certain
I
things
get
that
that.
I
I
can't
respect
because
that.
of logistical reasons. But um, on tours, they I can tell you this, that there's always a
Okay.
backup plan, always. So there's always a precaution. Um, there's always something that, I mean, obviously in my situation we have like Penske and Ryder accounts, so you got to have those. Um, and it's also relationships, and being able to call people and have because there's other small
Oh yeah.
carriers that do this, right? And I have some good relations with quite a few of them. We look out for each other. And then also on the bigger companies, you can bet you that there are definitely precautions, and there are definitely
Okay.
backup plans. And
So there'll be a
um,
ghost truck
and
available just in case, sort of thing.
well, you brought that up. So yes, there are
Okay.
situations. I didn't think whether, I mean, I think that's one of those things that for the most part is not really like, it's not a secret that they will have a
Yeah.
ghost truck. For anyone watching, a lot of people think, what's a ghost truck? A ghost truck is just, it's an empty trailer and a truck where if there's a problem with the trailer, it could be
Right.
transloaded, or if there's a problem with the truck, uh, it can drop that trailer. The other truck that has the problem, whatever, can hook to that trailer, stay with that, and the ghost truck can hook on
Okay,
and keep
yeah,
going. So yeah.
that makes a lot of sense that would happen.
Mhm.
What a fascinating sector of the trucking industry, and it's not for everybody. When I got into it, there were lots of people out there that were out there for 3 months at a time, 6 months at a time. And when deregulation happened, I think with deregulation, we got the big guys, the Hunts and the Schneiders, that took people that were not truck drivers. They trained them, put them out on the road, and then those guys used to bring people home, once a year, sort of thing, if they were lucky. And people quit right on the road. And I remember talking to somebody that worked for one of the big ones, saying, "Oh, we have a rescue team of guys that go, or guys and girls that go out and pick up abandoned trucks because somebody phones their house in Washington State from from Tennessee, and they find out their wife's leaving and they don't come home, and they don't want them to leave with the kids, so they leave the truck, and the truck stop, phone up dispatch somewhere in Wisconsin or Arkansas, or wherever they were, and said, "Listen, trucks and it's at the Flying J or wherever, or the TA, and I'm out of here." Bang, and off they go. They fly home. So it's certainly not for everybody being out for that length of time.
Yeah, and for us, like with my guys or with our team, um, if we're in a situation where someone has maybe something going on in their personal life and they
Yeah.
need to be closer to home, or me to not be like under a tour per se, that's where festivals, corporate events, because the corporate events are one-offs, and so we'll go service those. And so if someone has something going on, that's the thing too. It's not that your whole life is put on hold and you can't live your life, right? You don't have to take the tour.
Right.
We get offered the tour, or we're um, with some of our customers, they could present the tour and they say, "Look, here's the truck count, or here's what we're looking at," and but at the end of the day, we don't have to pursue the tour. Um, so I have conversations with the team where we go over that, and it's like, "Hey, so that when you're a tour driver, it's like, are you available?" Right now, if we give availability, we need to stick to that. So if you put your word out, your yes needs to be your yes, and your no needs to be your no. So if you're not available, you're not
That's
available.
fair. You know what? Because people have plans. They got a kid graduating, a kid going off to college, whatever.
Absolutely.
Josh, I hate to. I've really enjoyed our conversation tonight, and I want our listeners that maybe there's some owner operators out there that would like to take a look at what you people do over at Rickards Transport.
Mhm.
Can you give us some contact information so that people can get hold of you? Can you just talk?
And that's what's awesome, is that though we're a small company, we run everything very professionally. I mean, we have a TMS. Um, we have well-known ELDs that we run. I don't necessarily micromanage people. I'm not watching every second of what they're doing. I don't have spy equipment on anyone, right? But at the same time, we are very professional, and so we have a website, which is Rickards Inc. So it's the way the company name is spelled, inc.com, rickardsinc.com, and they can always reach out to me. And anytime anything is put on that contact form, goes directly to me. So I do reach
You
back
gotta
out.
love the technology, and it's really, trucking has embraced it like very few industries have. Great job, Josh. I got to tell you, this has been such a pleasure talking to you again. You're a breath of fresh air. Everything I read, everybody I talk to in this pulling most freight, even the flatbed guys up here in Canada are hurting. And then to talk to you, and you're positive, and your business is growing, and if it's the right people you're going to be hiring. It's so wonderful. I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Rates and Lanes podcast. You could have been anywhere, but instead you took the time out to be with Josh and me tonight. Unfortunately, my buddy Rico couldn't join us, but I'm sure he'll be watching it and telling us that Josh was an amazing guest. I am sure he will agree with me. And as Rico always says, keep it between the mustard and the mayonnaise. And please don't forget to put like if you enjoyed this, even if you thought it was lukewarm, which I doubt it. Please press like. We really appreciate it. And I want everybody to be safe. And as I always say, a catch on the flip flop. We'll see you next week. God bless and stay safe, everybody. Good night.